7 years ago this month, I was dying. I had what appeared to be both dengue fever and bronchitis. I was in the Philippines at the time. I was living in Mindanao, the southernmost island. I had recently returned from a trip to another island, one that, well, it will go unnamed. And I had contracted something. And 7 years ago, almost to the day, I crawled into the hospital, two different hospitals. I was refused treatment at the first one because I didn't have any money. I'd been living in the Philippines for a couple of years by this time. I was down and out. I had nothing. It's so much different there and around the rest of the world once you get outside of the U.S. and Europe. Okay, if you go to a hospital in the U.S. or Europe, and this is going to tick a lot of people off, but if you don't have money, if you don't have health insurance, but you're sick, you get treated, period. You might have a big bill you can't afford to pay afterward, but they don't let you die. Outside of westernized nations, they do. You're sick, you go to the hospital, you don't have the money, you're going to die. And if they have to remove your body from the waiting room, they will charge your family for having had to have done that. So anyway, I made it to the second hospital. By this time, I'm going in and out of consciousness. My beautiful bride dearly, aka Giggly Girl, was off seeing her family who lived a couple of hours away from us, bus ride at the time. And she had Daniel with her. He was, it's our son. He was maybe a year old, maybe 2. He was 2, I think. But she was rushing back because I'd sent her an email to let her know what was going on. I had to go to an internet cafe to do that because we didn't even have internet access. So I make it to a hospital where, fortunately, the doctor on call was a wonderful Filipino woman who also lives in the U.S. part-time. She went to medical school in Chicago, I think the University of Chicago. She said, come on, get this guy a room. And she said, I'm not going to let you die. She did the blood work. She came to me. She said, this is really, really odd. You have the symptoms of both dengue fever and bronchitis, but there's just some really odd things going on here with your blood work. And I asked her, what is it? I'm really trying to stay engaged with this story. Okay, it's a pretty freaky story, but there's obviously things creeping in close behind me that want to hear the story as well. So continue to get my 6. I didn't ask you to do it at the beginning because this was not going to be one of those stories, but lo and behold, is it possible for me to come into this forest behind my house and it not end up being one of those stories? So anyway, Dearly finally makes it to the hospital. She's told by this wonderful doctor, this woman saved my life, and I can't even remember her name, wonderful Filipino doctor. She was told that I had symptoms of dengue fever and bronchitis, and I was going to be in the hospital for about 4 days. And the doctor said, look, whenever you're able to pay me, but I'm not going to let you die. And that's how it worked. And it was some time before I could actually pay her. A lot of this story, I've got to leave details out, but I'm going to direct you toward the details here before it's over, so you can find these details. Many of you have probably watched the old show, The X-Files. You remember the character Deep Throat. He said the best way to hide the truth is between 2 lies. I found another really good way too. It's to just simply put it out there. Write it in the form of a book, but label it fiction, so you're covered. So at the time, what money I did have, I was acquiring by performing what we'll call odd jobs. Very odd jobs, but they got us through those times, okay? So the doctor finally came back to me and said, Sir Kevin, that's what they call you over there, sir, and then whatever your name is, said, even though you appear to have dengue fever and bronchitis, your blood work's showing as if you're perfectly healthy. She was shocked by this, but I wasn't, because I had reason to believe that I knew what was really going on. Okay? So Dearly was there. I said, honey, go back to our home. We lived in this little bamboo shack. I said, go get my laptop and bring it to me. So over the next 4 days, while I lay in the hospital, I finished working on a full-length novel I'd been working on for a couple of months that involved an entire story that I honestly believe to this day there were forces that did not want this story told. Amazingly, when I wrote the words, "the end," I passed out in the hospital, woke up, I don't know how much long after that, and all of my symptoms were gone. I was allowed to leave the hospital, and again, sometime later, I was able to go back and pay the bill. It was like 13,000 pesos, which would be about $280. I didn't have it. And you know what? I've complained in some of the other writing I've done. I can't talk about it really on social media, but I was very fortunate to have run into that lady who got her medical training in Chicago, in the United States, and who viewed me as a human being worth saving. And she told me, I asked her, why aren't you practicing in America? And she said, because I went to medical school to become a doctor because I wanted to help people. I wanted to save people. She said, I can't afford to do that in the U.S. And she talked about malpractice insurance and all this stuff. And we won't go down this road. This is going to take half of you off. And let me tell you, what you think is just ain't so. So anyway, she said by returning to the Philippines, she could do what she did. I didn't have to die over $238, which she said the treatment, had I received it over here, would have been something like $60,000 or $80,000, because that's what the insurance companies would pay. So that's what she would charge. And of course, the insurance companies would all be made whole with those monthly premiums that everyone pays. So anyway, I finished the story. What is this story about? Well, it's about a guy who ends up, a lot of you come here to watch these Bigfoot Sasquatch videos, these potential Bigfoot Sasquatch videos. Many of you have done a lot of research. You've done your homework. You know that Bigfoot Sasquatch is simply the North American version of this creature, of this being. You also know, and in case you don't, you're going to know now, most other major cultures around the world have a similar creature or folklore legend in their culture. Okay? If you go to China, they call Bigfoot the Yeren. He's kind of orangish. They are orange. Okay? So if you go to Australia, their version of our North American Bigfoot Sasquatch is the Yowie. Nepal has the abominable snowman, also known as the Yeti. In the Philippines, where I lived, this creature is known as Capri. I know I've had some of my Filipino friends back there tell me that if I can't pronounce it, I shouldn't be allowed to write a book about it. It's called Capre. I'm sorry, I've got no Spanish blood. I can't roll my tongue. Kapre. Capri. My beautiful bride Dearly, a.k.a. Giggly Girl, might call it Capri. But she can roll her tongue. Her maiden name's Cortez. Her great-grandfather was a Spanishman who was part of the occupation before, the U.S., or great-great-grandfather, whatever, how many back, before they were liberated by the U.S. in the Spanish-American War, 1898. Okay, too much information. They call those folks mestizo, and still have a lot of Spanish blood in them from their ancestrage. So anyway, I know a guy who went to this island performing an odd job for amount of money he couldn't refuse because he was broke, he was down and out, and he needed the cash. And so this beautiful young Filipina girl convinced him that her sister had been taken by one of the ragtag groups of terrorists down there in Mindanao. This particular group was Abu Sayyaf. They'd taken her for ransom because their father was supposedly part of the Filipino guerrilla army that actually stood up to the terrorists. And I won't tell you what the governments were doing in regard to these issues. It's changed. These groups don't exist anymore under the new rule over there. They've been stood up to officially and they've been decimated. But for many years, this wasn't the case. I can't tell you why here, but I can direct you to the answers, and I will momentarily. So anyway, this guy ends up going to this island with this girl, and he finds out the story that he had been told was not true at all. This girl's sister had been taken, but she'd been taken by something much more dangerous than a ragtag group of hooligans. She'd been taken by Capri. And this island where Capri had his fortress was heavily guarded by Sigbin, Tikbalan, Chuknuk, Malanungo, many forms of Aswang. The Windies, what are these things? I could tell you, but it would take a while, so instead I'm going to direct you momentarily to the answers because they're found the same place the answers to all the other back information I gave you are located. So anyway, this guy and this girl that suckered him to this island with this mad wad of cash spend some time trying to save the sister, having to fight their way through some of these mythical creatures of urban legend and folklore. They find the Capri, they find the sister. Do they make it out? Well, yeah. I mean, spoiler alert. Do they make it out unscathed? They thought they did, relatively unscathed. Until somebody involved attempted to tell the story sometime later and wound up in a hospital dying with symptoms of dengue fever and bronchitis, even though the blood work said that this individual was perfectly healthy. Guys, there is so much craziness in this story. So much craziness. And it's all told in a novel I wrote 7 years ago called Isle of Capri, which for the last 7 years has only been available in ebook format on Kindle. Until now, until today, that's changed because Isle of Capri is now effective immediately for the first time in the 7 years since it was first printed in ebook. Is now available in print, in hard copy. You can buy the physical, actual, I believe, 285-page long book, hold it in your hands, and read it. Okay, a lot of you, you're to blame for this. I mean, you're the reason it happened. So many of you watching this have read some of my other work that's been available in print, but you've not been able to read this one because you don't have e-readers, you don't have Kindle, but you've wanted to, and you've said, can you please make this book available in print? I've done that, okay? I will tell you this about this story. You're probably thinking, oh, all this to sell a book, because we get comments like this. Yeah, all of this to sell a book, because guess what? I'm a writer, first and foremost. Secondarily, I have a YouTube channel, of which I'm very grateful and humbled to have garnered such a large audience of people who have graciously come here to hear my stories. To those who come here to hear these stories, and who are positive and who are encouraging, I say thank you. If it weren't for you people that I just named, this book that is now in print would have never been made available in print. And when I was going over the manuscript of this thing for the last few days, I was reminded the work and the effort that goes into this from me. To date, this is my greatest work, okay? What goes into this? Reading between 100 and 150 novels a month, up to 10 novels a month, writing at times up to 10,000 words a day, okay, paying $1,000 for an editor, because even though, through doing you become good, you run enough, you're going to become a good runner. If you write enough correctly, and if you read enough prodigiously, you'll become a pretty good writer, but you'll still miss stuff. So you got to get an editor, which I've done at extreme expense at times because my name goes out on these things, okay? So yes, All this to sell a book because my work is worthy of being rewarded. Do you work for free? I didn't think so. So that answers that question before you even had to type it in the comment section. To those of you who have supported me from day one of this channel, I wish I'd have met you sooner. I wish I'd have met you sooner. You're real, you're genuine, and you're worthy of me having gone back through old files, pulled out old manuscript that was 78,000 words long, and spend the time required to make this available in print. I can't thank you enough. I'm going to put the link to all my books in the description of this video, and I'm not going to make a video just to sell a book going forward about what I've got coming up. I'm going to tell you what I'm doing, and I'll mention it when these times arrive, these little milestone points in the future. My other books, like From the Graves of Babes, Amazon's #1 rated ghost novel and customer satisfaction for 6 months in the year of its release, making it available in print as well. It's for you, for those of you who have been supportive, those of you who are positive, those of you who make what I do here on our YouTube channel enjoyable. I know I make too many videos. I make a video every day. It's too much. I know it. But I enjoy it because of you. And I appreciate your positivity. And I'm humbled that you watch the videos. And I've been flabbergasted, flattered, and humbled all over again by the number of you who have actually been reading my books on the Bigfoot Sasquatch Files series. You've been clamoring. Miss Catitude, who's been with us since before the Crayon and the Neighbor video went viral. Sue Warnes in England, who's been saying, will you please make these books available in print? I've read all your other books. I just can't find this one. And so many more of you. I'm sorry your names are slipping my mind right now in the heat of the moment. But the time has come. It's here. Again, I'll finish by saying this. That book is presented as a work of fiction. Good luck finding the parts that aren't true.